Bone, joint, and muscle injuries, they can happen without warning. That's why UPMC Orthopedic Care provides convenient walk-in access at our injury clinics throughout the region. No appointments are needed, just walk in for expert evaluation and exceptional care by our team of orthopedic specialists. Clinics are located in Carlisle, Lidditz, Harrisburg, and Enola. For directions and hours or to learn more, visit upmc.com/injuryclinic.
Alrighty, welcome into another edition of PA High School Football Report. We are powered by PennLive and the good folks at the Patriot News and PA Media Group. Eric Epler alongside Dan Sostek. Dan, how you doing this glorious Wednesday afternoon?
I'm trying to hang in there. Monkey paw wish that it got a little warmer, and then you get the rain. So we'll deal with it.
Yeah, as our guest, a soon-to-be introduced guest knows, usually sometime in early March, we get whacked pretty good with a little bit of a snowstorm, but we'll see if that transpires. So obviously it's interesting because we're in the middle of media days, Dan, for spring sports season. Hard to believe that because New Year's was just about, seems like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we're chugging along in a new year, but always time to talk football. And of course, high school football news always continues. We're going to jump in right away, Dan, with a special guest this week. He's on a tight window to chat about the 2025 season. So let's get him in here really quick. Welcome, new head coach for the Red Land Patriots, Jaimie Thomas. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
I think the first question, Coach, is obviously a broad picture one. Why did you choose to kind of jump into the head coaching ring at this stage in your pro career?
It's been about time. I'm big on progression, and that's how my coaching career has gone since the time I stopped playing. Started off as a volunteer for a couple of years at McDevitt. Got my first job at Harrisburg, and then bounced since then. McDevitt, Susquehanna, CDE, Dickinson College, Clarion University. And this was just kind of the next rung on the ladder, something that I aspired to do.
I'm interested, Coach, too, when the bug first hit. I mean, obviously, you've had a long career. Most of your life has been sent. Football has been a part of your life. When did the bug sort of first hit you? Or when did you know, hey, listen, this is the path I want to go down? Obviously, I'm assuming it's pretty early in your life.
Now, when you say that, playing or coaching?
Well, just football in general. Like, when did you sort of fall in love with it and decide, hey, this is what I want to do?
It's funny you say that. Most people that know me and knew me kind of growing up, my first love was basketball, man. Everyone in the family played basketball. I was the first one to really play it, at the high school level and then continue from there. But I would say the light bulb, it turned on for me in high school, junior year, started getting a lot of noise in terms of recruiting. A lot of Division I programs kind of up and down the East Coast, some out West Coast started throwing offers around. And I started to realize that, okay, this is something you can really do and take advantage of. Was blessed to have a, good college career there at University of Maryland under Coach Ralph Friedgen. Blessed to get drafted to the NFL, had a couple years in there. And then as my career was kind of ending there, because I had an injury that stopped me from playing, I came home and I just kind of started to go around the McDevitt program. I was just in a volunteer status, just wanted to be around, see how things were going. And I started to understand that, man, I have a lot of knowledge and experience that I can share with these guys that can help them, get to where they want to be and achieve the things that they want to achieve. And so I kind of dove into it, started becoming even more of a student of the game. The more you teach it, the more you end up having to learn it for yourself. I started to find a real passion for it. You know what I mean? This next generation of the youth that will continue to come up year after year, they need good guidance. And so, people like myself that, the more that we can give, the better.
It's funny you say, I feel like what everyone says, all football players want to be basketball players, all basketball players want to be players. Like, I remember talking to a guy I think you worked with, Anthony Smith. Yeah. He wanted to be a basketball player at first, and now him at Minnesota. But with that pedigree you have, I feel like the positions you kind of have focused on to start your coaching career, it's really important to have people like that. How is your expertise specifically in that trenches? How did that kind of help ease you into the coaching world? Because it feels like, that was sort of your gateway, right, to start working with kids individually, and then you kind of learn the ropes a little bit of how to do the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, honestly, it was just having the understanding. Being a player made that very easy. That was something I was actually talking with somebody today about. And it's just that me being a coach and having that understanding from having been a player, been through certain circumstances, different situations, different, trying times, right? Because, it's not always pretty. in the trenches and with different staffs and whatnot. And so kind of growing and learning through all of that just gives me great experience to be able to share with these guys. And it's been a heck of a ride thus far.
I mean, it's no secret, Red Land not been in the playoffs, I believe, over a decade. What's kind of, obviously, you're not going to have sort of everything figured out in a month, but what's kind of the general philosophy you have heading into this program, trying to, get the Patriots back to the playoffs? Because, I mean, we talked briefly. You made the point, I think it's a fair one, that despite the lack of wins and losses, it is a pretty open division in terms of a team being able to go there and kind of take the reins.
Exactly right. When we had that conversation, I ended up going back to look. I think Warwick made the playoffs as the 12th seed last year at 5-5 or 6-4. So even having been 2-8 several years, they played in a lot of tight games last year, kind of in the second half. And so you're not that far off. One of my big things is going to be teaching these guys how not to beat ourselves. Sacks, drops, penalties, turnovers. That's actually a formula that I know a lot of coaches are familiar with. I think it's called the 12% rule. And if you can keep those number of your plays, of those types of plays under 12% of your total plays, your win percentage is 90% or higher. So, that's going to be huge in terms of us just not beating ourselves. You know how turnovers can swing games very easily and those mistake type plays. So kind of getting away from those, teaching our guys to be competitive. One of the biggest things that I know I'm going to be doing here is kind of rebuilding the culture from the ground up, so getting some excitement in the program, getting guys that are in the school to come out and join, getting players that used to play to come back out and let's really try to do this thing. So just kind of building it step by step. But those are kind of the main focuses: being competitive, not beating yourself, and then just giving yourself a chance and fighting it out the entire, 48 minutes I think we play.
Obviously, someone with your football career, both as a player and a coach, you've worked with a lot of coaches, right? A lot of really accomplished coaches. Have you gotten any kind of advice or any kind of coaches reaching out to you after you got the job? I'm sure, obviously, you have a lot of good relationships with a lot of those guys.
Oh, yeah, 100%. A lot of head coaches, reached out, not even just head coaches, guys that I've worked with along the way that, are sharing the same coaching journey. I've all reached out in terms of congratulations. I can't say it enough. When I kind of released it on social media last week, it was a huge outroar of support, man. And that for me was huge. It just shows the community that supports me throughout different areas, throughout different levels of the sport, people that aren't even involved in the sport, that parents of kids that I've trained. It's just a ton of support. And that was great for me to see, because it's sometimes you don't get your flowers when you can smell them. So every now and again, when you can, it's nice to be able to do that. And then, kind of one of the biggest person that has kind of helped me throughout a lot of my coaching career has been Coach Ralph Friedgen. Being a former offensive lineman who ended up being an offensive coordinator and then a head coach and, kind of going through those same steps. He's been my mentor for the last, 5 to 7 years in terms of teaching me how to, learn the defense, see the back end of the defense, understand how things fit together. And then also, shared some of those head coaching principles. Like I said, that teaching guys how not to beat themselves, that was the main thing that he said to me. He did at University of Maryland when he went. His first year, those guys were used to having losing seasons. And in his first year, he had a group that was hungry and he was able to take them to a 10-win season and the Orange Bowl, and winning the ACC in his first year. And so, it helps to have that type of guidance and experience, to help you out along the way.
How do you go about familiarizing yourself with a new roster? It's probably tough at this time of year, right? Other kids are playing other sports. You're not sure kind of with the graduation and stuff. Is that going to be a process that kind of really kicks into gear kind of during the summer? Are you starting to kind of grind some of the film from this past year? How does that go back? Because I always wonder that with people taking over.
So one of the first things I did was reach out to the AD and got on huddle. I wanted to see film. What can I see of these guys and kind of know who's going to be returning? Starting looking up rosters. Last week was my first time getting face-to-face with the guys. Yesterday, we actually had our first workout and actually had a very good turnout. Right now, 2 days a week, we're going to practice in the mornings before school. And that gives me a chance because we do lose some guys to other sports. That gives us a chance to have a full group dedicated on just football at those specific times. And so we kind of mix that in with some afternoon workouts as well. It's funny, I joked with the kids about, you're going to have to give me about a month or so with names, right? Because I got a list and roster and I see your faces, but to marry those two together, it's going to take a little time. It's going to be an enjoyable process, man.
Coach, I know this differs from program to program. It's not quite like an NFL head coaching job where you come in and make sweeping changes to the coaching staff. how much leeway do you have with naming your staff? And obviously, with your network, you can pull in a lot of different directions. But how much leeway do you have to build your coaching staff?
So the great thing is, and I guess I've seen this with most other staff, but the AD let me know, I've had complete autonomy when it's come to my staff. And so I've brought some guys with me that I've coached with at other places. And I've actually retained a couple of guys who had reapplied that were there last year and the last couple of seasons. And so then there were also guys that applied for the positions that were actually posted online. And so it's been somewhat of a mix. There might be a face or two that was not either at Red Land or that has coached with me that will be coming on. And this will kind of be their first year total, as well as first year with Red Land. That's something I picked up from coaches along the way, in that don't be afraid to, now obviously you got to vet guys out and make sure you trust them and that they know what they're talking about, but don't be afraid to give guys a first-time opportunity. Someone gave me my first opportunity. Someone had to trust me when I didn't have any other high school experience. Now, yeah, I had a resume of playing experience, but that doesn't always necessarily attribute to great coaching. And so I've been blessed with it so far. I think we're putting together a really nice staff. Still be a couple of weeks before we're completely done. I like what I have so far.
I know it's only been a couple of weeks. Is there one thing, like, you mentioned about rebuilding the culture and sort of getting everybody on the same page and, all growing in the same direction. Is there one thing that you implement right away that kind of not fast tracks that, but is sort of the foundation of that, to get to that point eventually? Maybe it's, 6 months down the road, but something that you really have to implement now to kind of move that agenda along.
Something that I share with the guys, and it's the same thing I said in the interview process. I use the acronym of, we want players and coaches that care, right? And so the C being guys that are competitive, the A being guys that are accountable, the R being guys teaching guys to be resilient, and then the E being your effort, right? So those kind of foundational principles are going to be in any good program that you have. You're going to have guys that are competitive. They're fighting from the start of the game to the end of the whistle, play after play. You want guys who are accountable to their coaches, to their teammates, to their families, and to themselves. That's kind of teaching young men how to be young men. The resiliency. Now, some of that is going to come on us as coaches in terms of putting these guys in different, adverse situations so they can kind of build that mental toughness to push through it. Going into a football season, that there's going to be situations that are somewhat out of your control at times that you're going to have to battle through. Whether you're up 20 or you're down 20 and you got to keep that same mentality. Resiliency is going to be big in there. And then the last is just your effort. That's something that 100% you get to control. It kind of starts with us and instilling the morning workouts, right? That's something that they have never done at Red Land. And so having at least 2 workouts at 6 a.m. twice a week, you're starting to see, okay, who's willing to show up and do this and be on time, bring the right effort, and be here week after week. So obviously this is only week 1 of workouts, and we had a very good turnout. Guys worked very hard yesterday, so I was very pleased with that. But, I want to see how's that going to look in week 3 and 4 and 5, when that wake up time starts to really weigh on you a little bit. And that's going to be big in terms of seeing, for me, who wants it. At the end of the day, like I said, I'm a super competitive guy. I don't like losing my kids. I don't like losing on dates, like anything. You know what I mean? For us, I want my team to mimic that. They often say that the team kind of mimics the principles and characteristics of their head coach. And so that's what I would like to see for our guys to see on the field.
I'm going to pivot back to line play a little bit. It's kind of rare, you can kind of compliment these guys because they're not in your division. For a conference and a division to have 2 top, 100 something recruits.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, we have some really good offensive linemen, Kevin Brown and Tyler Merrill. I believe you worked with Tyler, correct?
Correct.
Just as a former Division I Power 5 offensive lineman from the Mid-Penn, how cool is it to kind of see that? Obviously, we had a couple Central Dauphin kids recently, just to, keep Anthony Smith too on the defensive line too.
Mm-hmm.
No one needs to even mention Micah, but to see that legacy of trench play in the Mid-Penn in an area where obviously PA is a good football, but it's not, we're not Texas or something where you can always count on a top 100 recruit every single year to have 2 of them and continue that legacy that you were part of.
It just speaks volumes for this area, man. In my mind, the Mid-Penn especially has been one of the great hotbeds of talent, in my honest opinion, across the country, right? Mm-hmm. You can name several NFL Division I high-profile guys that came through this area. And so, whether not even just linemen, but definitely having linemen on offense and defensive side. I think it's just a tribute to the work and the effort that those guys put in. I've got to train Tyler personally since he was about 11 years old. And literally at 11 years old, the kid was already 6 foot, wearing a size 15 shoe. It was like, Jesus, I know where you're headed, so let me just kind of give you some tools here to help take you to that next level. And he's developed tremendously. Kevin, I know, is another good player, hoping to have him at the Big Man Classic this year. It's been great to see, kind of coming from where I was, and you had me, the Jordan Hills. Micah obviously killed it in a ton of positions. It's been great for our area.
Coach, I want to pivot back to your choice. So I'm sure it was the Frisian effect that drew you to Maryland, but how did you survive dissing not only Penn State, but Notre Dame, the two biggest powers that be in Pennsylvania, and choose Maryland?
It's funny you say that. I can recall to this day having a phone conversation with Joe Paterno. Hey, you coming? We want to have you. We love you. And I was just like, Coach, I just got to be honest. I've never really liked Penn State. I kind of grew up a Michigan fan. You know what I mean? And so
He probably hung up right on.
oh my gosh. That was the end of the recruitment instantly. There's never been any hard feelings there. It's just that kind of wasn't where my heart was. Notre Dame, I won't lie, was this close to having me. At the time, Ty Willingham was the head coach. And while I loved him, something in my spirit just said, he's not going to be there all 4 years. And literally right after my freshman year, he was fired. I look back and say, hey, I made the right decision. I had 2 brothers at Maryland at the time, up and coming football program. And we did. We went to 3 bowl games out of my 5 years there, had a good, successful couple of seasons, great coaching staff under Friedgen. It's funny because I still have that Penn State connection now because of James Franklin, who recruited me out of high school. He was the wide receiver coach in Maryland when I was there. And so, it's funny how that ended up working itself out. Overall, I think it was the right choice.
Does James stay in touch a little bit? I'm sure obviously he's got, we all know he has interest in this area, but does he still keep in touch? And that must be kind of a weird dynamic now.
No, at this point, we're all adults, and I root for James and whatever he does. Literally just saw him at the PSFCA clinic a couple weeks ago here. Kind of gave me a shout out in front of the group, which I appreciated, because I've been one of his guys. At this point, it's like, hey, if I have guys that I can give you, I'm going to let you know as early as possible. And so kind of keep having those connections only helps the guys that are trying to come up through, because now, with the NIL rules and the adjustment to JUCO, it's unfortunate, but some of these high school players are going to suffer from that. And so trying to do what we can to kind of get these guys to that next level.
Coach, for the last couple of weeks, Dan and I talked a lot about the Big 33, some guys in the roster, things like that. We also talked about Coatesville's Matt Ortega, which I know being the first minority head coach of Team PA. Obviously a significant, milestone there. With you taking over at Red Land, I think now we have 5 black head coaches in a 38-team mid-pen.
Okay.
Cal Everett at Harrisburg and Andrew Irby at Steel High, Mark Saunders at Chambersburg, and then Joe Heaton, obviously at Hannah, which you have a tight connection with. How do you weigh in on that sort of significance of getting more minority coaches in the top spots, particularly, and not so much just mid-pen, but, obviously we need a rise in that total Pennsylvania-wide, but strictly hemming it down to the mid-pen. How do you sort of weigh that significance there?
I think it's good for the game. You need fluctuation. You need variety. And I think there's a great addition to the game that we can kind of bring, whether it's knowledge and experience. And then also, if you look at your players, and especially throughout the mid-pen, I'd probably say you're looking at 65, 70% probably African-American kids playing on those teams. Now, obviously, they don't know those variations change. I said Redland, a slightly lower population there. It helps in terms of being able to reach those kids, have the relationships. And when you can reach kids, you can motivate them to do more and do great things. And not saying that it's just about your color, but sometimes that helps in terms of breaking the ice for guys. If they can reach you, if they can come to you, it's only going to be good things for your program. And I think, as we continue to kind of see more of it, I think it's only going to benefit our game.
Completely agree. Coach, well, we can't thank you enough for helping us out, joining us for 20-some minutes here.
Hopefully we'll get out to the big man camp. It should be a fun one.
Yeah,
please, man. Saturday, May 3rd, Big Man Classic. It will be at Bishop McDevitt High School this year. It's kind of been my annual camp, and it's been very good. Over the last year, we had about 70 guys from not just PA, Maryland, New York, getting guys into Virginia and New Jersey. And we were actually able to, last year we had, I think it was 5 Division II schools come out. This year, because of the date, we're actually going to be able to have some Division I's as well as some Division IIs. So I'm looking for at least, 10 to 15 schools to be at this year. And so it just ends up being a great opportunity for guys that not only compete against regional competition, but to get seen and get on some of these recruiting boards.
We'll have Epler on an Oklahoma drill. So
love to see it.
Yeah. I'm a little fragile. I do run, but I'm a little fragile. I can't get hit anymore.
You still have battle scars from Dave Heckard, right? From running over in
John Ritchie. Yeah, too many scars for the guys. Yeah.
Love it.
Coach, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Congrats on the new gig. And obviously, we'll be out to see you shortly.
Thank you guys for having me. Look forward to seeing more of you.
Bone, joint, and muscle injuries, they can happen without warning. That's why UPMC Orthopedic Care provides convenient walk-in access at our injury clinics throughout the region. No appointments are needed, just walk in for expert evaluation and exceptional care by our team of orthopedic specialists. Clinics are located in Carlisle, Lidditz, Harrisburg, and Enola. For directions and hours or to learn more, visit upmc.com/injuryclinic.
All righty, that was Coach Jaimie Thomas, new head coach of Red Land High School. Fantastic guy, fantastic interview. Obviously, a wealth of knowledge, being a former NFL guy, exceptional talent. Went to Maryland. He's a McDevitt grad, and he's a welcome addition to the Mid-Penn Conference as a head coach. Dan, what do you think? I mean, obviously, he seems to be the right guy in that situation. I mean, I'm glad he threw his hat in the ring and this was time for him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen these infusions of excitement kind of bolster programs in the past. Like we saw with Jordan Hill at Trinity, right? 2 years gets them all the way, district champs. Lance Dean kind of revitalizing CD's football a little bit. Redland's a little different, it's you're a little bit of a different talent pool, but I mean, what I always look at is if you see a school having success in some sport, that tells you there are athletes there. And there are athletes in Lewisburg. There are athletes on the West Shore. We know there are because Cedar Cliff has had success. There's no reason Redland can't either. And he's right about that. I mean, the Keystone Division, Mechanicsburg is turning over a lot of players. Hershey's always going to be good. They're always going to be solid, but there's not a Bishop McDevitt level imposing figure there. And as we all know, the best way to build in high school is to build up those trenches and be able to run the ball. That's going to create such a high floor for you. And that high floor is what he talked about, right? 5-5 gets you to the playoffs in some of these classes. You're able to run the football. You're able to build up an offensive line, defensive line. You're probably in the playoffs. So, I think having an offensive line guy, I think it's fair to call him sort of a guru, right? He's a private offensive line coach. If he can do that for a whole program, they're going to be in good shape because at that level, it really is a lot of technique and strength building, and he certainly has the contacts to do it as well.
I always think it's neat, Dan, when and you've mentioned a couple of guys too, and guys like Danny Lansana, who have been around programs and now Jaimie told us about his sort of introduction post his NFL career.
Yeah.
They just was like, hey, I just want to be involved.
Yeah.
They do it voluntarily for a few years. No one's paying them.
I don't think he mentioned, but he also did the NFL program. He worked with the Texans briefly too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, but we have a lot of these guys as assistant coaches or volunteer coaches that come back and just want to be involved. They do it strictly, like I said, when you're volunteer, you're not getting paid. They do it strictly because they love the game, they want to stay in the game, and they want to help the next generation. We've been very lucky.
Yeah.
If you look at the rosters in the Mid-Penn, you're going to probably find one guy at least who either played in the NFL or was damn close to playing in the NFL.
Yeah.
And maybe was on a scout team or this and that.
If not, they're probably coaching in college because we have Matty Johnson. I don't know if you saw Kevin Snyder's now coaching at Kent State. Like, a lot of these former Mid-Penn stars. There seems to be a real coaching bug with some of these stars.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I think the Mid-Penn is very blessed to have these guys.
Jaimie, you can just tell he really cares about giving back to that next level of next generation.
Yeah, you have to have the want to, and that he wants to build that into a successful program. And whatever that means, whatever the definition of that means, it might, it's not going to mean a state championship program.
No.
You know what I mean? But just build it up slowly. And
Imagine what a playoff game would be like in Lewisberry after 10 years. Like we've seen environments in other sports there be pretty, raucous. If you get a football, like we've seen, whenever you see in any level a team that's been out of the playoffs for a while, when you start building, when I was in college in Pittsburgh, when the Pirates made the playoffs for the first time in 20 years, like if you can build that excitement for an area that it hasn't seen in a while, there's not much that you can do that, that tops that. There'll be scenes in Lewisberry.
yeah, I agree. All right. So we mentioned early too, in the podcast about, right now we're knee deep in state basketball playoffs, and we got a couple of football guys who are still toiling. I don't know. Are they basketball guys now that play football, or are they football guys that just play basketball?
It's what we talked about with Jaimie, right? I think
Right.
whatever you're not going to college for is what you like more.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
exactly.
because you don't have to work. But I mean, we've got a depth of these kids that across all of our boys state teams, and even one of our girls state teams too. I mean,
Yes.
6A, Cumberland Valley, Nolan Bazolka has been one of the very best players in the entire state, frankly. He leads the Mid-Penn in rebounding and assists. And he's obviously going to Kutztown to play football. Tight end. He's been a fun guy to watch throughout his career. Trinity's got Marcus Yeager playing kind of the sort of point forward role. He can shoot the ball despite sort of his physical style of play. So that's another one. Big Spring's got Brexton Heckendorn, a Millersville commit, who was hurt most of the football year, but is a good football player. And then honestly, who's been one of the best players in the playoffs this year is Cameron Sweeney from Hershey, who's getting a lot of Ivy League looks for football. I believe I think there's been a lot of interest. I think he rushed for like 1,300 yards this year at quarterback. Yeah, he's a heck of a fun football player to watch, but he's been awesome as a basketball player as well. I'm sure I'm missing a couple. Obviously, Josh Smith and Justin Bardo from Mechanicsburg. Josh Smith, does a little bit of everything. Princeton, I mean, even Anna Lehman with the Northern girls basketball starting kicker for the Polar Bears. So
I don't know. I think she can play OLB too.
Yeah,
I think she can play outside backer. Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't mind physicality.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, Bishop McDevitt boys basketball is in the playoffs too after a nice run. It's hard to keep track of. I believe Liam Fuller's still playing on their team. I could be wrong. But there's got to be some football. I think Sebastian Williams is somewhere on the bench there, future McDevitt quarterback. But
Exactly.
It's always fun to see because I've always, it's easy for me to say someone who's not worried about recruiting, who's just kind of worried about watching the sports and everything. But I just always felt like seeing these kids play multiple sports is always, I've always been a big fan of it. We saw the Irbies, right?
That's what I was just going to say. Like Steel High, there were 5 to 6.
Yeah, it sucked. The Steel High baseball team's all basketball team. They're not the best baseball program in the world or anything, but they do it because it's like, hey, it's another season. Andrew Irby's a big proponent of playing as many sports as you can. And I just think it benefits you. It just builds the competitive nature and it adds different skill. You can't tell me that Nolan Bazolka does not benefit from playing basketball on the football field and benefit from playing football on the basketball field. Like there are benefits to learning these. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes, he would not be the quarterback he was if he never played baseball. Like there's Tom Brady played baseball. I've always been a big fan. It's always fun to see these kids have a ton of success in the other sports as well.
I think the underlying effect and the positivity is the fact that it continues the structure. It continues your structure as a high school athlete. Practice, play the games, get on the bus, prepare yourself. Those type of things that no one sees. but obviously I think it keeps you structured. It keeps your boys together.
Yeah.
It keeps the camaraderie. It keeps the teammate, that attitude of playing next to your brother. That's so valuable. And that's such a value for high school sport.
Stanley Logis is another one on Chambersburg. He's been playing guard for them. So, they're just, there's more than we can count. And there's also plenty of kids who, play soccer and stuff too. But I've always, it's always great to see, when we do these media days too, it's always fun to see the kids who are, about to wrestle in a state tournament and they're getting ready for baseball season too. And, we also have Lucas Lawler going for a second straight state champion, trying to get his Riley Robel on. I think he was the last McDevitt football wrestling double champ. So just really cool to see these, and especially if you think about it too, like how little break these kids have from playing football.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Nolan Blazolka had a foot injury in the district playoffs and just has played every basketball game. These guys just don't have a break. Keep going. And so just always cool to give a little shout out to them, because it's a lot of work, but I think it benefits them in the end.
I agree completely. So the ultimate message is get out there, find out where these guys are playing in the next couple of days. Friday starts the state tournament. Friday and Saturday's first round games for all 6 classes. So get out, get in the car. A lot of the girls teams are still alive, are in the Philly area. We got a couple playing at home. Middletown is at home, and Trinity is at home because they were district championship runners up. So the rest are sort of on the road a little bit, but you can find them. Get out there and watch some basketball while you can, and obviously look forward to spring sports starting up. I believe it's less than 2 weeks now because practice started on Monday. So the following Friday we'll crank it up and get it going. So yeah, special thanks again to Jaimie Thomas. Obviously, great hire there at Red Land High School. And we're looking forward to football kicking off again. We've got the Big 33 coming up, East-West All-Star games coming up. Maryland just announced their Big 33 roster a day ago. We'll have that up on PennLive. And of course, as soon as July hits, Worm turns. So it's closer than ever. So, Dan, that'll do it for this edition. Appreciate your time as always. See you in a few hours for our next media day. And thanks to Megan, our producers, and thank you guys for listening in. We will be back next week with more PA High School Football Report, sponsored by PennLive. Thanks for joining.
Bone, joint, and muscle injuries, they can happen without warning. That's why UPMC Orthopedic Care provides convenient walk-in access at our injury clinics throughout the region. No appointments are needed, just walk in for expert evaluation and exceptional care by our team of orthopedic specialists. Clinics are located in Carlisle, Lidditz, Harrisburg, and Enola. For directions and hours or to learn more, visit upmc.com/injuryclinic.